All right, so today we are talking about logos. Now, keep in mind, when we're talking about the appeals, you might hear them called the persuasive appeals. You might hear them called rhetorical appeals or devices. And again, rhetoric or rhetorical, those things that just refers basically to the use of language to kind of help achieve a purpose. Keep in mind, a lot of times these work together, but you can also sort of just pick one as well. So our third and final one today is logos, and it's basically a logical appeal. So logos is an appeal based on logical reason, facts, and evidence. So logical argument usually convinces its audience because of the perceived merit and sort of the reasonableness of the claims that are offered, in other words, the evidence, rather than from the emotion it produces or because of who it is. So again, those things come into play and they might increase or decrease my argument, but the logos refers to the appeal of persuasiveness based on the logic. So the evidence you're giving me is something that, makes sense, and so it's hard to argue with. Or the logic that you're using in your argument is logical, so it's hard to argue with. And so it basically persuades your reader or your listener because it just makes sense. So for the purpose of this class, it says here we will evaluate logos only in regards to the evidence and the facts presented. Obviously, you can notice if someone makes some kind of a case that sounds totally illogical. But in another class, you can definitely pick apart and talk about all the different kinds of logic and things like that. But we're not really going to go there just yet. So it says here, an example of logos can be seen in the following scenario. You are a lawyer trying to prove a suspect is actually guilty of murder. So that's basically the claim or the argument. I'm persuading you this person is guilty. You present a murder weapon with fingerprints on it and a videotape of the act happening at the time, and DNA evidence in the court. These are hard facts that basically suggest the person is guilty. These are all facts, they're all logical. So when you say, well, the claim here is this person is guilty, and my evidence is a weapon with their fingerprints, a video of them being in the scene or something like that, and there's DNA, all of those things are like, well, you can't argue with that, and therefore it's persuasive because of the evidence and the facts. This also kind of goes back to why, regardless of what kind of essay you're writing, you always want to include evidence, because ultimately those are the things that are easy for your reader to agree with when you're giving them actual evidence. So you're going to take a look at a video clip. I think you will like it. It's one of my favorites. And you have 3 questions that you're going to answer. So first of all, once again, what is the speaker persuading? So what does the speaker in this video want us to believe? Okay, what's the argument? Number 2, what examples of logos do you see in the clip? In other words, what pieces of evidence are given to support number 1, the argument? Why are these examples considered to be logos? So what evidence do we have, and how does that work as a logical appeal? Number 3 says, what other rhetorical appeals do you see in this clip? So do you see ethos coming into play at all? Do you see pathos coming into play at all here as well? Okay, one thing I actually want you to consider is with the ethos, is there anything that I believe you could say that the ethos changes in this from maybe the beginning to the end as well. So consider how that could have affected your argument but then doesn't. And again, these all work together and they play off each other. When you're done with that, of course, you're going to go back to the article, and here are some questions that you have. Okay, it says, now looking back at Hounding the Innocent, These are some things you're going to ask yourselves, but I don't want you to do that yet until you've seen the video and you've discussed the answers. But I want to clarify a couple things. So number 1 here says, what are 2 major assertions the author makes in this essay? An assertion is another word for a claim. So above that word right there, you might want to go ahead and write the word claim. So basically, what are 2 claims that the author is making at some point in this essay? And a claim can really happen anywhere in the essay. The main claim is the thesis statement, but there's a lot of other claims throughout the article. Number 2 says, highlight the support the author provides for these assertions. So, for example, if I claim that the number of people being targeted for loitering when they shouldn't be targeted is outrageous, and then I give you the numbers of what those are, now I've made a claim and then I've given evidence. So that's what you're looking for. Number 3, we haven't talked about this term a whole lot, so I want to note that. It says, can you think of counter-arguments the author does not deal with? Now, a counter-argument would be something like, if I'm going to make an argument to my students that you have plenty of time to write a 5-page essay for homework tonight, I need to anticipate your counter argument, which I'm guessing would be, there's no way we have enough time, it would take me hours, I can't get to a computer, I haven't had time to research it, we're not ready to write an essay. So the counter argument would be your argument to me. So as a writer, I have to think about what those would be, because if I'm going to be effective and try to convince you that you can do that, I need to take into consideration the counter arguments. Now, this particular author doesn't really do that. And so what this question is asking you to do is, what would be some counter arguments, sort of the argument against this author that he's not really mentioning? So see how you do with that one. And then number 4 says, do you think the author has left something out on purpose, and why? So do you think, based on the claims he's making and the evidence he's giving, do you feel that there's anything sort of left out on purpose? And if so, explain your answer. Okay, once you are done with that and you feel good about logos, you're going to come down here to this question, and it says, now that you have all 3 appeals, so you have ethos, logos, and pathos, please consider the following. Rarely is any one statement or advertisement or argument, whatever you're looking at, an example of just one. And it's a lot like the methods of development. If you're using one, you're often happening to be using another one. So here's a statement for you. As your doctor, I have to tell you that if you don't stop smoking, you are going to die. So at the end of this worksheet, you're going to come back to this sentence here, and this is good practice for the quiz you're having tomorrow. And I want you to tell me, how is this using an appeal to ethos? How is it using an appeal of pathos? And how is it using an appeal of logos? And then be ready to discuss that with the class. Now, final note here, like I said, you are having a quiz tomorrow. You should be able to define these, and it's really important right here, this part here. The one thing I actually don't like about this is sort of a cheat sheet here, kind of to remember the ethos goes with credibility. But when we talk about an appeal to ethos or an appeal to logos or an appeal using a logical appeal, what we really mean is, how is credibility, evidence, and emotion being used in order to be even more persuasive, in order to be effective. So this isn't really totally accurate. The ethos does not equal credibility. Ethos is using credibility to be more persuasive. Logos is using facts and evidence to be more persuasive. Pathos means hoping to evoke an emotion to be more persuasive. And it's really, really important that you understand that it is using those things to be more persuasive. persuasive, it is not just those things by themselves. So at the very end here, it just says always, always, always think about your audience. Whenever you're trying to persuade somebody, again, ask yourself these questions. What are their values? What do they believe in? What are their opinions? What are they likely to say in response? And think of how these things can be used to address that. So good luck with that, and I know you'll do just fine.